G'day everyone and welcome back to another episode of Free Kick, the AFLW Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host Will, and today we have a very exciting episode for the Hawthorn Hawks, and I am joined by our resident Hawkman, Jono. How's it going, Jono?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. It's exciting to be here. I love chatting the Hawks, so excited to get stuck into it.
Yeah, we tried really hard to get him off this episode, but he insisted. Your Hawks, they've had an interesting start to their life as an AFLW club, slowly improving. Can you give us a bit of a rundown of how they went in Season 8?
Yeah. 2 seasons into the AFLW, and I feel like we've found our feet now. So in 2023, they finished 14th on the ladder with 3 wins and 7 losses, which, I mean, back-to-back 3-season wins is not ideal, but we are a very, very young team compared to the rest of the competition, and I think you can really see the development of talent that's coming along. Last season, we had the inclusion of Emily Bates and Greta Bodie, both of whom were very, very important. But I think really it was the young players. We're talking Jazz Fleming. Jenna Richardson had a phenomenal year, ended up second in our best and fairest. Anne McDonough was eventually our leading goal scorer, so that was really exciting to see. And just a lot of young players coming through that I really have a lot of hope for this season. And I think with some of the additions we've brought in, are going to have a really, really positive, potentially, edge of finals kind of season for us. So the one thing that the Hawks really struggled with is that whilst we were good defensively, we are still yet to break the 50-point barrier in a single game, which is not good for 20 attempts. So
yeah, it's better to kick more points. I do agree.
But I think new coach Daniel Webster, he's going to be a very, very positive sign for the Hawks. So I'm really excited by his efforts up in Queensland in the last couple of seasons in the Quaffle and with the Brisbane Lions AFLW midfield. So should be a very positive season in 2024.
Yeah, Beck Goddard's arguably the biggest out for the Hawks this off season. We'll get you to run through the ins and outs for the Hawks because once again they've had a very busy off season. They've again recruited some very, very good players, and they've lost a lot of experience, though. So who's come in for the Hawks so far, Jono?
Yeah, so coming in for the Hawks, very, very exciting. We've got 2 players from Melbourne that we gave away pick 5 for. Eliza West is coming in to bolster our midfield, and Casey Sheriff, just to help with our outside run, she's probably going to be playing on the wing. So 2 very, very important signings there. The Hawks, as an expansion club, also had the option for some pre-season signings. And we picked up Laura Stone, Hayley McLaughlin, and Jess Vukic. And that is a very exciting trio. So I think Laura Stone, had she gone to the draft, would have been one of the top pick players. Phenomenal talent. Is probably going to start off half back for us, rotating through the midfield. Hayley McLaughlin is a very, very talented winger. She's going to run all day. And Jess Vukic is a very, very important structural pick for the Hawks because when we get to our outs, we have very little ruck depth left in our team. And she is probably a little undersized as a ruck, but makes up for that with also doubling her forward efforts. So I'm excited to see how those 3 come in this season. Finally, we also had 2 picks in the AFLW draft. Michaela Williamson is a very hard-running winger that we picked up at number 17. I think she and McLaughlin are going to end up long-term really being pillars of our team on the outside there. And then Sophie Butterworth with pick 45 is a bit of a key development project.
Yeah, very nice. And the Hawks have lost a fair bit of tall timber, and in particular experienced tall timber. They've lost 4 key position players, in fact, over the age of 30, including friend of the pod, Tam Luke. So who else have they lost going into this new season?
Yeah, no. So Tam Luke is a massive retirement. Was obviously captain of our VFLW side back before the Hawks were one of the latest additions to the AFLW, and a phenomenal ruck. So very, very sad that she is no longer playing with us. And she's one of 4 players that retired at the end of last season. So we also lost Tegan Cunningham, Catherine Brown, and Akek Makur-Chua, all of whom were very, very talented and regular players in our side, to be honest. We've also delisted Janet Baird, Zoe Barbakos, and Sarah Perkins. Sad to see them go. I can sort of see where the club is trying to bring in this youth, and this is a lot of the older players that have gone, with the exception of Zoe Barbakos. So I can see why we've done this turnover, but it is a lot of experience leaving the club.
Yeah, very nice. And this is the part of the episode where we'd normally throw to an interview, and we've got a very exciting one for this one in young Ruck Lucy, Wales. However, due to scheduling conflicts, it's actually going to be happening just before we release this episode, meaning we are recording it without actually hearing the interview, and it's going to be at the end of the episode. So we're going to just go straight into the analysis now, and hopefully what happens in the interview doesn't supersede what we say, and we're 100% correct.
Yeah, I really feel like my knowledge as a Hawks supporter here is going to be tested. Am I getting anywhere near close to what Lucy's about to say?
Absolutely. And look, I hope for your sake that you do, but I think it would be funny if you didn't. So I guess we'll start with our top 5 fantasy relevant players, as we always do. Jono, start us off with number 1.
Our number 1 player that we're going to start with is a new player to the club. It's Eliza West. So
Westy.
Yeah, one of our favourites. I think when we started this pod, she was one of the draftees, or the season we started playing AFLW Fantasy, she was the draftee to get and really took off. But I think she's going to be a fantastic addition to the Hawthorn midfield. So she's going to be priced as a 69-70 averaging midfielder and mid only, obviously. But I think what she's going to bring to the Hawthorn midfield is going to be very, very impressive. One of the best in and under players at stoppage, which I think is really going to feed into supporting the rest of the midfield. I think when you add in the fact that Hawks are one of the most contested teams and have a lot of stoppages, that's going to be really exciting for her from a fantasy perspective. And we've also got a midfield coach coming down in Daniel Webster, and I think he's really going to be able to bring the best out of her. I'm not really sure what was going on at the Demons, but it seemed like she was in their side and seemed to fall out just as finals came around. So I'm not sure if her best footy qualities were really being brought out of her there. And I'm really excited by what she's going to be able to do at the Hawks.
Yeah, it was very surprising to see her falling out of favourite Melbourne. She seemed to have been an integral part of that midfield group in a premiership year, and then, as you say, just sort of fell away.
Yeah.
Speaking of favourite midfielders, though, number 2, arguably one of, if not the favourite pod midfielder we've got.
This is a phenomenal talent, and when we're talking about who Eliza West is going to be feeding the ball, there's no better player than Emily Bates. She is going to have a very, very important season for the Hawks, and if West is giving her the ball more, then I think we're going to be able to see a lot more of her on the outside, because a lot of her efforts last year, I think she was stifled a little bit in having to be the first player to the ball every time. And when she wasn't, it definitely boosted her tackle numbers. She was averaging near on 10 tackles a game. And I think there was only maybe 1 or 2 where she didn't have at least 8. So remarkably consistent on the tackle front. But there was just not enough support, I think, of getting first possession and giving her the ball, which kind of limited her score down to an average of about 93. But I think with a little bit more support in there from West, I think she's going to be able to get a little more on the outside and really just help bring that score up to something over 100 every week.
I like that you say limited to only 93. It's,
As if she's not the highest averaging Hawk we have, yeah.
Exactly. Like, you know, she's W Award winner, absolute star of the competition. So I'd be super interested to see how Eliza West changed that midfield.
Sorry, before we move on though, the other thing that I didn't mention was that Emily Bates's best and fairest season came under Daniel Webster as her midfield coach. So the combination of these two again, I think we're going to see the best out of her.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, the one question I have is I wonder if Eliza West might be one of those players where her jumping average mightn't be that significant, but it's really going to help the others in the list. What do you think about that, Johnny?
100%. I think she is more unlocking the talents of the others, which probably brings us to number 3 on the list, which is Jazz Fleming. Because I think Fleming is a 59 averaging midfielder. She's coming into her 3rd season in the competition.
3rd-year breakout.
Exactly. This is something that we've seen from others. I mean, what did Robot and what did Prosparkas do in their 3rd years? Huge, huge numbers. I'm not suggesting that Fleming is going to come out and put up 105 averaging season here. But
she
think
could.
she could do a lot more than what she's done. Some of the preseason things that we've seen coming out of the camp, it looks like she is stronger and faster than I've ever seen her. I'm very excited for what she can do this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And she's one of those players that is clearly too talented to not get a run in that midfield. And There's also been a fair bit of talk of the skipper, Tilly Lucas-Rod, maybe moving more into a defensive role. I think that this is a very big year potentially for Jazz Fleming. And one of the things I love about this top 5 group that we've had is you've basically just gone, let's just list the centre bounce combination for the Hawks, because at number 4 we have the final piece of that combination.
Yeah, Lucy Wales, the ruck. And Lucy, I'm so excited to hear from her later, because this is the first season that she's going to be coming in knowing going into round 1 that she is the Hawks' number 1 solo ruck. So in the last 2 seasons, she's had Tamara Luke playing alongside her in round 1 both times. And for various reasons, that hasn't played out across the season. She has had times as solo ruck throughout her career. But when she does, she definitely puts up a much, much higher score. And I think this season coming in, looking at the Hawks list, I mean, there's almost no backup for it. I think aside from Jess Vukic, who's a first-year player, our next ruck option is probably someone like Lou Stevenson. So I'm not really sure how the Hawks are going to deal if she goes down. But to start the season, I think she is a very exciting option. I think she's going to be having very, very high time on ground. I think she's going to be tackling a lot more, running a lot more. We're in for a very high breakout year for Lucy Wales.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible. And I think a lot of players will be looking for probably an Ellie Morford type. I think she's priced a fair bit more than what Morford was last season, but that player who can take that big jump and become a premium player. And I think Lucy Wales is a really good option there.
The only thing I've mentioned here, which not one of the top 4, but I think this is the Hawthorn's ideal midfield combination, is these 4 players. And I think that does mean that someone like a Tilly Lucas-Rod, they are probably going to take a little bit of a step back this season.
I think if TLR does end up playing in a more halfback role, if they can get a cheeky defensive status next year, that would be super interesting, because then they might be someone that we're looking at, they play 50% midfield time and average like a 70. Terrible for a midfielder, for a defender.
Absolutely.
That's
massive.
very exciting.
Yeah. I think when Tilly first had their best season, they were listed as a defender. So
yeah, they were.
It'll be good to throw back to that kind of a time.
Yeah, they were a real unique pick back then. So I just want to put that in the bank. We've already got a season 10 watch in our preseason review episode. Yeah. So we'll move on to the number 5. Who's your last sort of interesting pick for the Hawks?
Yeah, so I think this one might throw you a little bit, because it is not the one that we have in our rundown sheet. I want to completely throw that out for a second.
Nice.
Because I have thought about this today, and I think Laura Stone is one person that I'm almost certainly to throw straight in my team.
Nice.
Laura is listed as a mid only at 300,000, so there's a lot of midfield going on here at the Hawks. But I think this is one player that is almost certain to start in the Hawthorn side. Very, very talented. And this year in the VFLW, she has basically alternated. At the start of the season, she was playing a lot of halfback and sort of getting that ball down there as our distributor, because she's excellent by foot. And then at times she was moving into the midfield, which had a lot of nearly moments, if that makes sense, where you can sort of see the talent is there and it's just about pulling it off. But she's got a lot of talents. One of her best attributes, to be honest, is her aerial marking ability. And I think that's something that can really rack up the points from a fantasy perspective. So it's going to be tight for spots, but someone that I'm looking at for my utility definitely would be a Laura Stone.
Yeah, interesting. In terms of that defense, actually, I've gone for Jenna Richardson as my Will Special one. Averaged 48 last season, but what kind of grabbed my eye was that she scored a couple of 70s, a few 60s, and I guess one of the things that I find really interesting was that she was taking a lot of the kick-ins, particularly later in the season when her scoring was going pretty well. And I kind of don't really know where the points are going to be, how the points are going to be distributed in that Hawks backline.
Yeah, I do like that you've picked this one, because I think there's going to be a little bit of change coming in the backline. Last season, throughout the periods, we were rotating a lot of people through there. So players like Katie Ashmore or Eileen Guro were occasionally jumping in and taking kickouts and kind of limiting from a fantasy perspective what is a very impressive season from Jenna Richardson. But I think as the season grew, as you said, she started taking on these responsibilities. I think the Hawks could really see the value that she brought, and she's going to kind of have that sort of starring role to start this season.
And didn't score below 40, which is an okay bar. Didn't score below 40 in the second half of the season, which is pretty good consistency. So yeah, Jenna Richardson's one I'm quite interested in that regard.
Priced at 48, it's an interesting sort of middling price there.
Yeah, and we talk a bit about defenders where do you go all out? Do you go mid prices? I think if you're looking at a mid price strategy for your defense, I think Jenna Richardson's a player who can definitely jump 10 points, make you a bit of money, possibly be a stepping stone to someone who's one of the uber premium players later on in the season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's points to go around, but honestly, looking at our forward lines, I feel like we're sparse enough that we're going to have to pay for whoever the very limited options are. And we could get to our back lines and just be running out of money. So this is it's a good one to have in the back pocket.
Speaking of forwards, before we wrap up, I do want to talk about Casey Sheriff, because we know that Casey Sheriff has been listed as a forward.
Yes.
And that makes her an interesting prospect at a price tag of only 39.
Yeah.
We know she's a more talented player than that. Do you think she gets a role that allows her to be a moneymaker at the Hawks?
Yeah, so I find it fascinating because Casey Sheriff is one of, I don't know, maybe 6 players that I can name that when they were playing in the VFLW earlier this season for the Hawks was predominantly on the wing. And so I'm really interested to hear what Lucy has to say, because between some of these other rookies that have come in that are predominantly wingers, between Casey Sheriff, between Charlotte Bascarin, there's just a lot of people who can run on that wing. I think Sheriff is definitely the most talented of them, and one that, like right now, would be the one that you would want to be moving the ball through. So I'm hoping that as a 39, she can maybe push that up to 50-55 as an average. But the other thing is, let's take someone like Katie Ashmore. She's also someone who, if they're trying to get the most out of what could potentially be her last contract at the Hawks, being 35, I think we've probably only got a few seasons left of her at best. It's something that they might say, hey, we want you to be our predominant winger, and Casey Sheriff is out on the far side of the ground covering and running the miles. So it's going to be really interesting. I think what Lucy has to say here is going to be fascinating.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good segue to finish the episode. Thanks everyone for listening. If you want to follow us on all of our socials, go to @FreeKickWPod. We'll have our best 21s up very, very shortly, if not already, where you can see who we think is going to be in the starting team for Hawthorn come round 1. And there's heaps more content to come. I believe the next episode we're jumping from your team, Jono, to Mel's team in Freo.
Yeah, I think Freo is going to be a really, really interesting team, because with Kiara Bowers becoming pregnant and not being able to play this coming season, and Stanek going down with an ACL, there's going to be a lot of change in that midfield, and that's going to flow on to other areas of the ground. It's going to be fascinating to see how they line up.
Yeah, absolutely. And we, just as a little sneak peek, might have got one of the potential midfield options there as an interviewee for the next episode. But for now, we're going to head to that interview where Liam interviews Lucy Wales. Hopefully she doesn't say everything that we just said was absolute garbage, but you never know. So stick around. Heaps of great content. Don't go anywhere. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Hey everybody, just a quick aside, this is Jono from the future here. You can probably tell that it's a different version of Jono because the audio quality is very different. And I'm clearly wearing a different shirt, which you can all tell from the podcast. So I just wanted to jump in and say 2 quick things. The first is obviously Freo is not next. They came out on Monday. We had a little bit of a mix-up with the interview scheduling, and that has resulted in us releasing Hawthorn a little bit later. We're going to be jumping to St Kilda tomorrow and hear a little bit about what's been going on over at the Saints. But this mix-up has also meant, part 2 here, that you're going to be hearing me interview Lucy Wales, not Liam. So it is going to be a little bit overwhelming. You're going to hear 3 different Jono audio quality voices on this podcast. I'm not happy with it either, but this is the reality of the high quality ship we're running here. So let's throw over to Lucy and hear some of the insights she's got to say about the Hawks. All right, welcome Lucy to the Free Kick Podcast. It's great to have you. How are you going?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, excited to be here. I'm going well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. How have you found the return to preseason now that you're nearly a month underway?
Yeah, return to preseason's been really good. I think obviously we've had a lot of new faces coming as well. So the vibe around Hawthorn is really good at the moment. And yeah, we've all hit the track really hard. So yeah, seen heaps of improvements so far in pre-season and hopefully continue to see that rolling into round one.
Yeah, no, I love to hear that. Has it felt like a sort of an extended preseason, given a lot of the team were joining in the VFLW really early in the season? I mean, I think you played a couple games back in March.
Yeah, it definitely has felt like an extended preseason. I think we were all really keen after last year. We kind of put some goals in front of us, and we knew we had to put the work in throughout the off season, and work hard when potentially other teams were having their break. So yeah, we got together really early. We've been doing sessions since much earlier in the year, and then yeah, to all get a good hit out in the VFLW was really good. Yeah, to get some games together and play our new system, I guess, with our new coach coming in. I think really beneficial, and hopefully, yeah, we see the benefits of that throughout our season.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the biggest changes, as you mentioned, is Daniel Webster coming down. How have you enjoyed meeting him and the preseason so far, working with him?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed getting to know D Web. I think his energy around the club is really vital, I think, to how we're going to go this year. And yeah, he honestly just brings a bunch of experience, bunch of knowledge. He's really good at engaging with every single person in the team, and hopefully, yeah, that starts to show in our games.
When you talk about a new style of game that you're going to play, what are you talking about there? What can we expect from the Hawks this season?
I guess what I mean is like the way we're going about it. We worked really, really hard this preseason. Yeah, to nail in our skills. We recognise that as a weakness of ours in the first 2 years. So skills was kind of the main thing we've been focusing on, and then just playing an exciting brand of footy where we're scoring plenty of goals. I think yeah, that's the main thing, and just really representing a team brand of footy.
Yeah, no, I feel like as a Hawks supporter, I think the Hawks defense has been so solid for the first couple seasons for a new team. And whilst we've got a lot of talent, I think in the forward line, we're just yet to put up one of those big monster scores. So I'm excited to see how you guys go about it. Is it a different type of transition footy, or what are you thinking this season?
Yeah, I guess what we talk a lot about, when we have the ball, we definitely want to make the ground big, which is going to, I guess, give more opportunities to our forwards. And yeah, hopefully we've got so much talent down there, and we probably just haven't been able to connect the three lines in that way in previous seasons. So hopefully the forwards, they get on the end of a few more goals this season.
So just jumping back to, I suppose, some of the off-season changes that have happened. You've had one of the sadder retirements, I think, in the AFLW last season was Tamara Luke stepping back, which leaves you really as the most experienced and almost sole rock on the list, aside from someone like Jess Vukic, who's quite young coming into the side. Are you preparing for this season as if you'll be the sole rock coming into round one?
Yeah, I guess this year's been a bit different. I mean, I've been obviously in previous years working with Team Luke and been able to learn a heap from her, and she's I guess been the most experienced rock on the list. So it has been a bit of a change this year. Obviously now I'm perceived as the most experienced rock, which is weird to think considering I've only played 2 years. I'm definitely keen to work with Jess and hopefully get this rock combo up and running. Yeah, just see how we go this season. I guess I'm hoping within myself that I get to play the ruck position. But yeah, Jess is so talented, and hopefully we get to make a nice combo, and we'll just see what works best for the team, I guess.
I think Jess isn't the only one arriving at the Hawks this off-season. You've had so many players come in. None bigger than Eliza West, who I just saw was named vice captain of the club. Can you tell us a little bit about her impact since she's arrived?
Yeah, I mean, she got signed in the off season, so as soon as she got signed, she was at our off season sessions, and she brings so much leadership, so much experience. She just goes at the footy like really hard and brings other people along with her, I guess. So I was really pleased to see that she's been elected as our vice captain, and she thoroughly deserves it. Yeah, hopefully you guys will get to see her develop her leadership as well on field, because she's definitely been working really hard in the preseason to improve on that side of things.
I think she's one new player to that midfield, but it looks like the Hawks have so many different options who are going to be running, underneath your feet as you tap it down to them. Who you've been training alongside this preseason?
Yeah, I mean, probably the names you can expect with Jazz Fleming, Emily Bates, Eliza West. yeah, and obviously we've been trying new things with the midfield, rolling different people through there. So yeah, I think it's really exciting to see. I guess we get to take our midfield to take the next step, I guess, in terms of we've got some more experienced players in, and we now know how we want to play in there. So hopefully we can transition that into having good midfield numbers. And yeah, coming up against other teams, we're really hoping that we'll play as a better midfield than previous years.
There's also a lot of young talent that's come in through the preseason signings and the draft. What have you made of their starts at the Hawks?
Yeah, I mean, they've all been super impressive. I think the talent that some of these young girls have is so impressive. They're hitting kicks that not many other people on our list can. So they've all been super impressive. And then obviously we've got the experience side of things with as you said, Westy and then Casey Sheriff as well. So to have their experience and leadership with the balance of some young, talented young ones come in has been really exciting. And I think they've rounded out our team really nicely. I feel like we've got a nice balance this year, and it's going to be really tough for the selection side of things. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I honestly, watching just who's played on the wing in the VFLW, it seems like we've had 8 or 9 different players on the AFLW list run through that wing. Casey Sheriff being a great example. I don't know how you're going to be picking that midfield, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's a tough decision for D-Web and the likes of all the other coaches, our mids coach Keegan. So yeah, that's probably unfortunate for them. But in the end, it's a really good thing that we've got so much talent on our list. And yeah, it's probably been something that we've been lacking in the previous years, to have those selection decisions like really tough and really hard for the coaches. So yeah, I guess it's good that we get to really compete for spots this year, and that's only making our training culture a better, more competitive environment.
I feel like in the past couple of seasons, we've seen some players who, generally more experienced players, have kind of been thrown around a little bit. So talk about Katie Ashmore sort of going back to defense at parts last year. With the competition for spots, is there anyone that's training in a new role that we might get to see in a different spot on the field?
I think everyone's pretty much training where you'd probably expect them. I think with such a versatile list, you see people like Kate Ashmore, they're able to play multiple positions. So yeah, the coaches will probably start toying with things like that throughout the season. But everyone's really focused on, I guess, locking down their main role for the team, because selection's going to be really difficult. So everyone's really focused on locking down their role, and then I guess the more versatile the better it is for the team.
We were talking a little bit before about sort of that transition into forward 50. And one of the things that I'm really excited for the Hawks of is just finding the different goal kickers. Is there anyone you've seen in the forward line this year that you're going, wow, they're having a really exciting preseason and we should be keeping an eye out for?
I'd probably say Hayley McLaughlin, one of our pre-signings down in the forward line. She's been super impressive, and she's very, very versatile as well. But her skills in front of goal and to hit leads up is awesome to see. So yeah, she's probably a bit of a dark horse in terms of what the AFLW world kind of expects from her. But yeah, she's been hitting the track really hard, and I think at Hawks we're all super impressed with her. So excited to see how she goes against other teams, I guess.
Yeah, no, I'd love to hear that. I feel like some of the highlights we've seen of her, she looks so skillful. It's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, she is.
Well, I guess thank you so much for joining us. It's been great having you on the podcast. Yeah, good luck to the Hawks in 2024.
No, thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been great.